En el vídeo anterior os mencioné a los activistas, víctimas y delatores Robert Duncan y John Hall. He seleccionado para vosotros los fragmentos que yo consideraba más significativos de una entrevista que le hizo Seth Daniel. De esta forma los podéis conocer mejor y saber quiénes son. La entrevista se hizo en enero del 2011 y la fuente de donde he extraído la entrevista es de Friedenrechte and Leben Netzwerk. Y dicho esto, bienvenidos. Soy Eningal y comenzamos.
John. Okay, Dr. John Hall, Dr. Robert Duncan. Okay, these are the two heavyweights in this the most horrifying topic of all time. You know, electronic harassment, mind control. And to start off with, a lot of people have heard you. I've heard your interview with Alex Ansary on, Coast to Coast on, I'll just start with you, Dr. Robert Duncan. A lot of people know where all this came from, Operation Paperclip, the Nazis, the kind of technological background. But so much is going on today, and I've heard a lot of your stuff from a couple of years ago, but now that we've had the Jared Lee Loughner case, and I just want to ask you about this just right off the bat. I mean, is that potentially a programmed guy?
Oh, absolutely. It's surprising that he even mentioned mind control in his blurb on YouTube, but he very much fits the profile of a programmed assassin. And he was easily discredited in the news, as we saw, as someone who was crazy. And that will sort of explain away what he did. And the motives behind it, his individual motives are going to be different from his controllers' or handlers' motives. And we can only surmise that maybe they want to take away more power, gun rights from the citizens. Well, what do you have? You have more crazy people using guns to commit horrific crimes. You don't know what the political agenda might be, but he's certainly somebody who should be looked at closely as being programmed. He talks about neuro-linguistic programming, which is a form of brainwashing, and programming an assassin. And in the old days, Dr. Ewan Cameron, when he was conducting the experiments for the CIA, he used two-track loops of really negative messaging while the patient was undergoing electroshock and sleep therapy and being given high doses of drugs. And he would try to program a person through this what's called neuro-linguistic programming. The Army uses it as well, and it's a field of study. You can study at MIT, and it's how to control the mind through repetitive statements.
That it's absolutely horrifying to have seen that. But I mean, we all knew that. You know, this guy, if you follow his history, he hadn't been really violent. He'd been weird. He'd been an oddball. He'd been definitely someone you could target as somebody weak or, that would be able to do killing for somebody, or it could be just we don't know the motives. But, I mean, obviously, of all the people in a population, he would stick out as somebody to mess with if you were in the business of controlling people.
Absolutely. And that's one commonality that you can find. We did about 650 interviews of targeted people, and one commonality is that they're usually easily discredited in public, and they stick out as an oddball of some sort. And so, yeah, he would be an easy target for them.
And then you got to wonder the motive, and the federal judge is shot. But then other people can be targeted who are not an oddball. Dr. John Hall, enter please. And here you are. You were targeted, and and there's nothing that. I don't think anything about you that would just signal a flag. Oh, come get this guy. He's easy, or he's manipulatable. Let's try it on him.
Well, not until I joined this fight, anyway. Once you start making noise about this technology and joining and combating this, then certainly, to some extent, you're looked at as an oddball for believing it, for one.
Right.
And especially in medical circles, as a physician, the take in the medical community right now is that, you shouldn't be, counseling these people as to being victims, but should be referring them to a psychiatrist for a diagnosis. And that's pretty much the pervasive thinking throughout most of the medical community. There's slowly more physicians coming around to see that there's a problem, and it's not necessarily mental illness now. But I do agree with Dr. Duncan in that most of the people that you see being victimized by this are already social outliers. They're already people that are maybe somewhat involved in the drug counterculture or have other factors in their lives that discredit them already before they ever mention a word about electronic harassment.
Okay, but the case in point is your book, A New Breed. Now, I interviewed you when it came out, pretty much, and at that time there were just a few reviews on it, but you could tell there were people that were really relieved that you wrote the book. Okay, for one. I, for one, was in that category. But then there's others there that would just give you 1 star and call you and, basically try to defame you. Defamation, very big with these people. Defame you right on that Amazon site. And now I notice that because you hung in there, it's gone the other way, where you have a lot of really positive comments now. The public seems to be accepting your book.
Well, in my situation, it was actually my fiancée who was really more the victim.
Okay.
And we did identify the perpetrators in her case, and a lot of those first reviews were actually traced back to some of the perpetrators themselves. That definitely wanted the book discredited and wanted me discredited, and went to some great lengths to try to accomplish that, and luckily did not. But and the one good thing about Robert Duncan coming out with his book, Soul Catcher Volume 2, my book, I go over we're pretty much of the same mind on how the technology works. My book was more just a story from a credible person that, yes, this is going on. His book goes into detail on how it's done, and has really been a godsend for the victim community.
I'm kind of playing catch up here with everything. I need to get that book ASAP. Dr. Duncan, did you get harassed for writing that book?
No, I actually haven't. It's been very positive feedback.
Get that book.
It almost seems like more public a person is, more they will, stand back because they don't want it to be too obvious. But I haven't had any problems with the publication. And in your introduction, you said it was called Hacking the Human Mind. The title actually changed.
Okay.
It's called Project Soul Catcher, Secrets of Cyber and Cybernetic Warfare Revealed. And the reason that I called it cybernetics, and the field in psychophysics or neuropsychology in cybernetics comes from a Greek word meaning the art of steering. Cybernetics is about having a goal and taking action to achieve that goal. Knowing whether you have reached the goal requires feedback, a concept that comes from cybernetics. And that evolved into the Latin word for governor. And cybernetics as a process operating in nature has been around for a long time, but in society, we've heard it used first by Plato to refer to government. In modern times, the term cybernetics, there was a book written by Mr. Wiener called The Cybernetics in 1948, a year after the formation of the CIA. Mm-hmm. His subtitle is important because it connects control systems with communication, and and he also points out in 1948 that both artificial systems and biological systems can have purpose, and this was a scary concept back then. So that's the idea behind cybernetics. Cyber has to do with cyber warfare techniques, hacking computers. Now, there's a kernel, and you can still find this paper in the military literature of the Air Force, that the mind has no firewall. And so the idea is that hacking into computer systems and hacking into human beings, individual minds or society's minds, the collective conscious, use the same techniques and trickery.
Gracias por estar ahí, os mando un beso y nos vemos en el siguiente vídeo.